Hey guys, Bones here. Today we're going to go over my Viessa guide. She can be a very strong Descendant if she's built correctly. She has a few options for weapons, components, and modules, so let's just get right into it. For weapons and components, you have three main options. The first one is the Secret Garden. The Secret Garden is the best weapon for ability damage. The reason why this weapon is so good is because when you use a tech skill, which is our Blizzard, our main damage source, it has a 50% chance of granting pest control. Pest control gives us a 5% skill power increase, plus a 16% skill power per stack. At max unique ability level, its duration is 10 seconds, which is going to be longer than our Blizzard cooldown. This lets us have a chance of fully stacking pest control for a 53% increase in our skill power, but it only has a 50% chance of triggering. So sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll proc pest control for the whole duration of the fight, and sometimes you'll get unlucky and it will barely proc. But if you're trying to min-max your damage, this is the way to go. The best components to pair with Secret Garden is the Slayer set. The Slayer set gives us a 26% increase in skill power. The important stats to get are defense on the memory, max MP on the sensor, and max HP and MP recovery out of combat on the auxiliary power. All of these are must-haves. This version of the build is a bit squishy, so you need HP and defense to get as much survivability as possible. Max MP allows us to use more abilities, which is massive since this is a ability build. MP recovery out of combat is huge for two things. One, it lets you spam Blizzard before the fight to stack up your pest control while remaining at full MP. And second, whenever a boss phases, there's a high chance you'll drop combat, which will help you gain your MP back. The second option is Clairvoyance. Clairvoyance inflicts Void Gaze and Appalled Calling on the target based on what stage the beam is. These reduce the target's chill resistance, so this is more beneficial in bosses who have high chill resistance. This weapon fits a playstyle of shooting while your Blizzard is up rather than just spamming abilities. The cool thing about this weapon is that Void Gaze and Appalled Calling are both considered Frostbite, so this allows us to run the Polar component set. This set gives us a 6.2% chill skill power increase that allows us to benefit from the 4-set bonus. Every time we stack Frostbite, which we are going to be doing constantly with Clairvoyance, we have a 30% chance to get a 1.7% firearm crit damage and a 6% skill crit damage increase, stacking up to 10 times. That's a 17% firearm crit damage increase and a massive 60% skill crit damage increase. For someone who wants to use their gun more with Viessa, this is a great option. The third option is the Blue Beetle. Whenever we use a fusion skill, which is our 1, 2, and 3 abilities, we gain arcane energy. We can maintain 100% uptime on this buff. At max unique ability level, skill critical hit rate is increased by 30%. This is about a 4.5% skill crit chance increase. While this doesn't have as great as potential as the other two options in terms of damage, you can rely on having it up at all times. If you run this, I recommend you run skill critical hit rate on your Reactor, which is something we'll touch on later. The third option for components is more focused on survivability. If you are willing to sacrifice around 20% skill power, you can run 2-piece Annihilation set with 2-piece Polar set. This set has defense and max HP as a main stat on every single component, which lets you further optimize your HP and defense. The Polar set will give you 6.2% chill skill power, and the other set will give you 5.7% skill duration. Now this is important. For Viessa, for the first % increase in duration, no matter how small, will make Viessa's Blizzard tick 1 extra time before it explodes. Here's an example with duration and without duration. So without duration, 1, 2, 3, 4 ticks. Now, if we put this on, we do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As you can see, it had an extra tick right before it exploded. This means one singular increase in duration is one of the biggest damage increases we can get. Since with this tankier setup, we have an increase in duration on our components, it means we do not need to run skill duration increase on our modules, which we'll touch on later. Now for the reactor. For the reactor, you're going to want a frozen mechanics reactor to gain the benefit of the chill skill power as well as the tech skill power increase. For optimization conditions, you want to get whichever weapon you choose to use. For stats, the two biggest damage increases that you can get are additional skill attack when attacking Colossus and skill critical hit damage. Skill attack against Colossus is the highest damage increase for bossing that you can get. And again, if you're running the blue Beetle, I recommend you switch one of these out for the skill critical hit rate. Skill critical hit rate on the reactor gives you about a 4.5% skill critical chance increase. So paired with the blue Beetle, it's about a 9% skill critical chance increase, which is very good. As you can see, I'm lacking additional skill attack on Colossus on my reactor, so you can do even more damage than the damage you saw in the boss clips. Another option is to run skill cooldown. My current setup has a 7.1 second cooldown on Blizzard. With a skill cooldown reduction on the reactor, it reduces this to 6 seconds, which is the lowest possible reduction in cooldown for Blizzard due to caps. With a 6-second cooldown on Blizzard, you are able to put a Blizzard down right when your other Blizzard explodes. This causes 4 ticks of Blizzard to happen all at once, which results in massive burst damage. It's honestly so fun to watch the boss's health bar chunk when this happens. For tech skill power boost ratio and chill skill power boost ratio, it's not as big of a damage increase as skill critical hit damage and damage to Colossus for my testing. So those are alternatives if you can't get the other ones. Now let's go to modules. With my current Catalyst setup, I run 3 variants. The first is the min-max damage setup, which I use for bossing, and I use the Slayer component set with this one. All 3 setups uses cold-bloodedness. This module gives us 586 skill power, as well as reduces our cooldowns by 20%. We pair this with MP conversion for 36.5% cooldown reduction, Nimble Fingers for 25.6% cooldown reduction, and Focus and Chill for an extra 6.1%. This results in a 7.1 second Blizzard cooldown, which is close to the 6 second cap which I mentioned earlier. We then run Battle of Stamina. This gives us a 122% HP increase as well as a skill duration increase to gain the extra tick in Blizzard that we need. We then run Spear and Shield for 68% defense and 8.1% increase in skill power. Then for more skill power, we run Focus on Chill for 77.2% skill power. After that, we want to stack as much crit chance and crit damage as we can. So we run Skill Insight for 115% crit chance, Skill Concentration for 115% critical hit damage, Emergency Measures for 64% crit hit and 27% crit damage, and then Frontlines for 64% critical hit damage and 27% critical hit rate. For the last module, we run Dangerous Ambush. This module is very important as it gives us almost 50% skill power when the boss is knocked down. This lets us unload our MP bar by spamming our abilities when a boss falls down for maximum damage. Now with this setup, we don't run skill expansion or anything that increases our skill range, as this setup min-maxes damage and cooldown. This makes it important to watch the pathing of the boss so you can put your Blizzard in a spot where the boss will be in it as long as possible. However, most of your damage will be when the boss is knocked down anyways, where you can unload your MP bar and not worry about where the boss is or it getting out of your Blizzard. Now for this last module slot, I don't have a Catalyst in it because I like to put skill expansion in here whenever I'm not fighting bosses. Now, if you're looking for a more tanky setup while still having a ton of damage, this setup right here is a better setup for you. This setup is for the 2-piece Polar and the 2-piece Annihilation setup. Since we have skill duration from our components, we can switch out Battle for Stamina for HP amplification. This gives us a massive 227% increase in HP. I also chose to opt out of Spear and Shield to use increased defense for 160% increased defense. While this does make us lose 8.1% skill power, I felt like it was worth losing to maximize defense in this setup. I also use skill expansion instead of Dangerous Ambush since I use this setup mainly for content other than bossing, but if you want to take this into bossing, just swap this out for Dangerous Ambush. In this setup, you lose about 28% skill power when compared to the other setup, but you gain a ton of more survivability. Now for farming, I use this Tankier variant, but I swap out increased defense for maximum range. This just allows for a giant blizzard when paired with skill expansion, which just makes farming very easy, and it's awesome just seeing a giant blizzard. And that concludes the build guide. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful or informative in any way, please like and subscribe. Peace!